anybody can compete with multi-trillion-dollar companies, and you could just be one person with $5,000 to your name. Right now, it's a moatless industry.
I was waiting for this day. I can just use my brain and plug it into Claude and spin up entire parallel universes.
When I saw people like Elon Musk complaining about the EU AI Act, I saw that as an opportunity.
It all comes down to energy, and El Salvador is a great source of energy. The possibilities for El Salvador becoming a go-to spot for energy and regulation, it's really the model for the world. And our objective is to try to build this citadel concept. Bitcoin is safe haven money, and El Salvador is a safe haven country. So the sweet spot of growth is happening right now. 14 months ago, Stacy was talking to me about AI, and she noticed that a lot of the Bitcoiners and the miners in particular, a lot of that compute was migrating over to AI. And this triggered really an investigation on her part into where this was all going. And so now 14 months later, we're doing incredible things in the AI as well, with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are seeing you guys take a sort of an EAC approach towards AI, right? You're accelerationists. You want to dive headfirst into it, while there's a lot of other countries, such as in Europe and whatnot, that are much more hesitant and scared. Can you take us through your philosophy when it comes to AI, which is a sort of groundbreaking, earth-shattering technology that we're dealing with here?
Sure, we are the only EAC country, and it is EAC, it is accelerationist, effective accelerationism, which is the opposite of effective altruism, right? Effective accelerationism was birthed by Guillaume Verdon, who goes by the handle on X, I think it's Beth Jezos.
Yes.
And so he created that concept of EAC. And that's kind of how I came to AI. Obviously, everybody in the world can see the news headlines going through their X stream. And I did too. And I saw a lot of, as Max mentioned, I saw the Bitcoin miners starting to migrate their hash towards, HPC AI data centers. So I started to observe that. And then in my feed, I had more and more of, the EAC sorts that I was naturally following. And it's interesting that people like Palmer Luckey or Elon Musk are also, AI engineers and builders and technologists who also own Bitcoin. Or in the case of Palmer Luckey, he says he was mining Bitcoin a long time ago. So there's a natural overlap. So I was already naturally focused on that side of AI. And when it was 14 months ago that I actually passed our AI law here in El Salvador. I wrote the law over the previous 2 or 3 months. So I had been observing this for about over 2 years. And we started our AI policy with our partnership with NVIDIA. And they were the first company I contacted. And we went out there to Silicon Valley and started, signed an MOU to become part of their sovereign AI program. So I, just as running the Bitcoin office and working with the president on, promoting the country and attracting, the best and brightest from around the world, which I felt that this is why we first came up with the notion of Renaissance 2.0 in El Salvador, was that we knew, because we are the best and brightest. No, just don't use that. Cut that out. But no, we knew from Bitcoin that the best and brightest were already attracted to Bitcoin. And it's a winning formula for a country like the new El Salvador, right? It had been a failed state up until President Bukele transformed the nation into a winning country. And so how to become even more winning, how to sustain the win, is to attract the best and brightest. So that's what we saw. It was so obvious to me looking at AI and the AI industry, the emergent, I guess just like Bitcoin had been there for really 20, 30 years in terms of the ideas that then birthed it. And then it was slow, and then hockey stick in terms of adoption. The same thing was going on with AI. I could see that the smartest people in the world were attracted to it. And so naturally, building a new El Salvador, you're like, well, how do we get those best and brightest people to come here? We want those people. And so the EAC community was just a natural fit to our pre-existing reputation. And we crafted our regulations around that. This notion of people who want to build, iterate, and deploy. And that's what we position El Salvador as, is not only a sandbox for innovation, and quite a few other countries or jurisdictions try to position themselves as that, but uniquely we're also a test bed for deployment. So you could deploy fast here, and it's not something that is easily done elsewhere. So look at our partnership with XAI, for example. They're building Grok Tutor for our more than 1 million students, public school students in El Salvador. And I contacted them in the first week of August 2025, so less than a year ago. By December, we had already announced our partnership, and then we were already building and we're piloting, just less than a year later. So think about that in terms of, do you think they would have ever been able to do that anywhere in the United States? Certainly not in Europe, but anywhere in the United States, even like a city or town, I think it would be quite difficult to do that. But here in El Salvador, you can deploy. And I think that's an important differentiator between us and other jurisdictions, is that we have the agility to do that because we have a very popular president. His latest poll ratings from international polling companies is 95%. So wow. I think people like what he's doing and they want more of it, because people like winning. Once you're if you've been a loser for 40, 50 years and then suddenly you're winning, it feels really good and you want more of it.
Yeah, the AI component is super interesting and it's so fast. And, we're in an interesting position to see and look at the two communities and contrast them a bit. So with Bitcoin, of course, it's all about hodling and you never really spend your Bitcoin. With the AI community, it's really all about spending. The amount of money being spent on compute on these racks of GPUs is in the billions and billions, and the companies' valuations are in the trillions. And there is a very interesting relationship between the two. I talked a little bit about this at the SOV AI Summit, which was held at the historic National Palace not too long ago, a few weeks ago. And for example, in the case of Bitcoin, you're converting energy into tokens, or Bitcoin as the hardest money ever created. With AI, you're converting energy into tokens, which is fueling this AI economy, agentic economy and revolution, which is all about infinite intelligence. That's kind of the goal, is that you're going to try to harness what I call the, prosaically or kind of metaphorically, the global unconscious, if you will. There's a end game in this, that the infinite intelligence that's possible will take humanity to a different place. It's a very interesting concept. It's talked about certainly in the EAC community, I think would say, talk in those terms, that there's infinite possibilities, and that's what makes they're excited about the technology. And so you have the similarity between the two, and of course, it all comes down to energy, and El Salvador is a great source of energy. We have hydro, we have solar, we have now geothermal. Geothermal is coming online more and more every day. You've got more than 170 volcanoes or so that can be used for geothermal energy. The president recently opened that up for private corporations to explore and to develop as geothermal energy. And geothermal is obviously clean energy, and there's ample room for creating lots of it here. So the possibilities for El Salvador becoming a go-to spot for energy, and for the regulations. The regulations, getting back to Stacy's point about the law that was passed, the AI law, it's really the model for the world. A lot of people are coming around to the tenets of that law as being the best, the benchmark for other countries to look at, to how to attract AI and the industry to their countries. And so it's really, again, a reflection of the leadership we see at the top, President Bukele, and the folks that he has working with him, obviously in the Bitcoin office, Max and Stacy and others that come in And our objective is to try to build something that has never, hasn't existed for a long time. And that is this citadel concept of the place to be that has the best of everything. And that is what we see evolving.
Yeah, and you guys have been fundamental in helping to write these laws to, of course, establish Bitcoin, the regulatory clarity there, and these AIs, and now robotics laws. So what did you guys ever imagine you'd be helping to write laws at one point in the future? And what is that like to actually be doing it?
Well, it's part of the you could just do things mindset, right? Basically, when I saw, so the EU AI Act was happening, I saw I'm having them turn on the light. This one over here, these lights over here, turn on that. So when I saw people like Elon Musk and other builders in the AI space in the United States complaining about the EU AI Act, and I saw that as an opportunity to position ourselves within the AI world, to announce to the world like who we wanted to come build in El Salvador. And if you've ever, heard of the EU AI Act or anything, basically it adopts the mindset of fear. And we did the opposite. So Elon Musk also famously in an interview said something along the lines of, there's going to be amazing abundance thanks to AI, right? But there is a 10% chance we're all going to die. So we adopt the position that and as he also said, is like you must build for the 90% chance that it's all going to be amazing abundance. It's going to be the best of times, because why adopt a doom and gloom mindset when that's only going to create the outcome that you fear, right? So we want a positive outcome of abundance and human flourishing. And if you've ever used any of the tools in AI, you could see that it does level the playing field very rapidly. It's like those early days of Bitcoin where it just totally leveled the playing field. And right now is genuinely this liberating moment where anybody can compete with multi-trillion-dollar companies, and you could just be one person with $5,000 to your name or $500 to your name, and you could be competing with them legitimately. You see these headlines now actually happening. They're not just like what if, but these are it's possible right now. Maybe that window of opportunity will close in the future as incumbents establish moats, but right now it's a moatless industry. And so we saw that and seized the opportunity. And it's all about the mindset. We believe that we could create the positive outcomes we believe these tools enable. And so when you look at our National AI Strategy Report that we published last week, we have maximizing national sovereignty. The three goals of the strategy is that to maximize national sovereignty, to maximize human flourishing, and to win the build. So those are all about the mindset.
Absolutely. And, the thing about the laws is that here in El Salvador, because the president is very dynamic and very popular, he's able to get laws through pretty quickly. And it all goes back actually to the Bitcoin law, which was the first law we worked on. And that was out of necessity because we saw that to help the country steer its way out of the altcoin, I'll use a polite term, the altcoin.
No, you're talking about the digital assets law.
The digital assets law. And so to help the country kind of make its way through without getting a lot of static and interference from all these other competing projects and smaller projects, because we felt that Bitcoin was the brand of Bitcoin, and the brand of Bitcoin post El Salvador was so great that any incremental gain that could have been gotten by having any other side project would not in any incremental way compete with, it would damage that Bitcoin country brand. And we came up with this Bitcoin country brand. And so that was kind of the beginning of really trying to formalize the idea that Bitcoin is money. Everything else was maybe a security and had to go through securities. But on this point where Stacy's making about how the agentic economy empowers individuals to take on institutions and take on the highest powers in the land. I love the story that just came out recently about a man who cured his dog. I don't know if you saw this, but the dog, I think, had some terminal illness. And he went into his AI and he developed a cure, essentially, using the massive power of AI and, helped his dog. So this is, I think, a great example of how the individual can rock the institutions and rock the legacy world by harnessing AI, which is, I think, misunderstood in that it is infinite intelligence at your fingertips. And we're moving from a period where coding is the primal skill to being more of a generalist, more of someone who can imagine, someone who can dream, someone who can think. So that's good for me because as a boomer, I bypassed the entire coding, years. I was waiting for this day when finally I would not need to code, and I would not have to learn to code. I can just use my brain and plug it into Claude and spin up entire parallel universes. And you can do it a lot easier here and have a great environment. I often say that Bitcoin is safe haven money and El Salvador is a safe haven country. So combining the two is really a very compelling reason to move to Bitcoin country. And we've all been saying for years, the 4.5 years we've been here, reaching out to people and say, move here, come here, experience El Salvador. And the more people that come, they understand, yes, and they end up moving here. And there's a great influx of folks moving here now. And the buildings are going up. Many buildings are being raised. So the sweet spot of growth is happening right now.
Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you could drop a like and a share, it would help in our mission to accelerate adoption. If you're looking for more Bitcoin signal, join over 10,000 readers of our newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. Every Monday morning, we send out the biggest headlines of Bitcoin to keep you in the know in under 5 minutes. Links below in the description. Then come hang with us live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We break it all down live on stream with a new guest, and you can add your 2 cents in the chat. See you next week.